Good afternoon, everyone, and happy Friday. I hope you're all doing well and remaining safe wherever you are working from. These are troubling times, and I just want to advise everyone to be careful, especially if they live in urban areas and if you're moving about the city for whatever reason. Please be careful. There's a lot going on, and things can catch you off guard. Other than that, I hope you're home working safely and are making progress on this part of your dissertation journey. So for the last couple weeks, I intentionally have given you a little bit of space as you come off of comps and to become acclimated to the idea of organizing where you are in your process. Regarding how you're going to organize your dissertation. Remember, I said early on in the semester, I perfectly realize that you're all in different places. Some of you may be quite far along the process. Some of you may just be getting kickstarted. I know some of you have done some literature review work, others have not. So you'll find in this course, as I said earlier in the semester, that it works at a pace that allows you to, work at the stage you are in your dissertation process with the hopes that this is the semester that we're going to bring everyone to some semblance of order and readiness to move into next semester where you hopefully will either defend your proposal or continue to prepare your proposal. So the first couple weeks here, as you know, you've been reading along with the Terrell book. I hope you find this book straightforward and helpful. I've chosen it specifically because I think it's a very easy to read, practical guide with a lot of good examples, and it sort of breaks down the sections. If you were entering into this process wondering if most dissertations look the same, this book should give you a glimpse that most dissertations look the same, meaning the format. When you couple what you're learning through the Terrell chapters with the outline of materials that you have access to in the PhD handbook, these are appendices A and B, you should be starting to put together a document that may seem a little empty to you right now and just a bunch of headings, but you'll see that what we're doing is providing a structure for you to be able to sort of place into those sections where you are. So, for instance, you may have a very well developed sense of your research questions. Great, put them in there. If you don't have them well developed, put something there, put your ideas there, and that may be evolving as you work with your chair, for instance. You may have done a literature review, but not have formatted it in the way that the literature review needs to be formatted in the chapter 2. Put it in there. Imagine this outline to be like a suitcase that you're putting your things into and you're going to be carrying along. I think that's a good metaphor for what goes into a dissertation. Many new doctoral students who start working on dissertation get a little freaked out and thinking, oh my goodness, how am I going to write 300 words or whatever you think the finished product is going to be? Trust me, it will develop and it'll grow, especially if you start from the beginning to put everything into this suitcase format, so that what you're working on and at what phase you're working on it is in that format, and it's going to help you in the long run, trust me. So of course you've read the first 4 chapters leading up to this week, I hope, of Terrell. I think the Terrell book is particularly good. Oops, see if I can get to it here. The Terrell book is particularly good because it weaves together the purpose of the dissertation with the format of the dissertation. So as you go through these chapters, you probably and should have learned, you know, what the different chapters represent and how the different sections of your chapters need to be developed, even if they're not developed yet. You'll see that in some cases to represent something that's probably more appropriate to other types of sciences. That's okay, like a null hypothesis. I don't know all of your projects yet, but it's likely that there aren't going to be many of you that are going to be testing those sorts of hypotheses, but doing other sorts of research projects. So as you go through these first 4 chapters, hopefully you now have an acclimation to what what these 3 chapters are meant to be. I want to make a particular comment about the first chapter. Your first chapter, in many ways, should read almost like a standalone product. Imagine it being sort of the mini dissertation, with the exception of the data, the research, the data analysis, etc. Anyone should be able to read that first chapter and get what your study is about, generally what methods you're going to use, and generally how you plan to conduct the research, though with no great detail in that latter part, where that's going to come out in your method section. So your first chapter is this opportunity to get your head on straight and to understand all the basic blocks of what your study is going to be. Now, of course, remember, this may be evolving, and that's okay. Even as you get far along in your dissertation writing, you're going to be going back and forth between chapters saying, oh, if I changed a little bit of my method here, I need to go in chapter 3, I need to go back to chapter 1 and make sure that I readjust that because it all has to line up. As we go into this next period, I like to call it, which is sessions 3 and 4 leading up to our virtual residency on the 20th, here we're going to focus a little bit more on the alignment of what you have going so far, not just the format and the organization. And our old friend Maxwell comes back. And I think Maxwell is an amazing construct, simplistic, but it does help you sort of visually and relationally look at how the different major sections of your research design are related. Many students ask me, should I put this into my chapter 1? Why not? There's really no reason why you can't help your reader understand the relationship between these components as they relate to your research question. In fact, once we get rolling along a little further, you're going to see me constantly saying, remind the reader, what is your research question? Why this conceptual framework? Where do your research questions end up in the landscape of your research, of your conceptual framework, etc. So I encourage you to think at times visually as you're trying to write out what it is you're trying to do, but then also use visualization in your writing. That's very helpful. I know many of you, as you read the material that's been offered to you in classes throughout the 2 years, you've probably really appreciated when an author actually went an extra step and said, if that didn't make sense, let me see if I can visualize it for you. So I'm not saying your dissertation is going to be a picture book, but what I'm saying is, in some cases, and Maxwell is a particularly good case, where this very simplistic relationship is really the crux of what you're trying to explain in your dissertation. Remember, I said in the beginning, a dissertation is very unique. It's describing a study while you're doing the study, which is very different than just reporting on a study, which is often what we find in a research article, which is, of course, is much more parsimonious. It's not telling us every decision and why the group made those decisions, but rather it's just reporting on the design of the study and the results. So as always, I hope you are taking advantage of your dyads and the one triad we had here. The point of this is to have a buddy that's always available and can take a look at your work. This is one of those cases where the team approach is not meant to be an extra thing to do, but is meant to be something that's actually going to help you complete your the work that you are attempting to do by providing another set of eyes. It would be very difficult if you're in groups of 4 or 5 or 6 where everyone had to read everyone else's work. I find that becomes a little unmanageable, but the dyads that you're working in should be sounding boards. You know, did you get this whole business about a subjectivity statement? What did you write, or are you writing something? Does it even apply to your particular work, etc.? So in this week or these weeks leading up to residency, what you should be focusing on is moving not really away, but including into your formatting of your work. Because I know you're probably working with a chair, you're probably still raking through literature, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Now you're going to start to talk about the integration that is going to contribute to the design. Of course, this is where there may be serious departure in the different types of dissertations we have, because we'll now, this week, look to Terrell for differences between quantitative, qualitative, and mixed method studies. I don't assume that everyone's doing a mixed method study, but I would think that many of you are. Not all dissertation studies are mixed method. They're not all qualitative or quantitative. So these 3 chapters are meant to sort of give you a refresher course on the courses you already had, and sort of help you sort of explore how this relates to what you might put into your dissertation, especially chapter 3. So look at these readings as sort of a refresher. Some of you may say, oh, I know already my study is already totally qualitative because my chair and I have talked about it and so forth. Great. You probably want to focus more on that qualitative research method section. If you are doing a mixed method study, but you don't quite have everything worked out, am I going to use a survey, an assessment? Am I going to do structured interviews, semi-structured interviews, focus groups, observation? What am I going to use? I don't know all that yet. Look at the mixed method section with a little bit more detail so you can see how these things fit together. Okay, I'm just going to leave it at that because I don't want to overburden you with a lot of extra material. Remember, I promised you that this summer is a very different way of looking at a course. I actually give you as much time as possible to work on your dissertation so that you can be prepared near the end of the semester and within the fall. And I'm here once you start to put things down in writing to help you with that. But the discipline of doing all of this is on you. You can very easily get behind in what we're doing week to week. I highly suggest you create that discipline. Later in the semester, we'll talk about the discipline of writing, but right now, it's the discipline of knowing that unlike your courses previously, there isn't something due every week, or there isn't a discussion board, or there isn't a Collaborate Ultra every week. You have to really find that space that allows you to devote the time necessary to this. And it's a very unfortunate time because I know some of you are juggling your work, possibly small children at home, possibly even other types of interruptions that are beyond your control, which makes it even harder. But those things aren't going to go away. So I really depend on your own agency to figure out how you're going to find this time, because I certainly don't want you to be derailed by social determinants right now. We want you to stay focused so that you can stay on track with your dissertation, get through this very last course of your program, and move forward with the real meat of the dissertation work, which is, of course, the research. So I'm going to leave you with that. Of course, as always, please leave questions. And I apologize, in the beginning of the course, I didn't have the subscribe button on for your questions and gallery items. I do now. Sorry about that. So if you post something there, if you want to share something, feel free to do that. Also, if the dyads want to use workspaces, you can create your own discussion for your dyad to share information that way too. I hope you all have a great weekend. I hope you either get rest or caught up with your work, whatever you need to do right now. And I look forward to seeing more about your progress as we move forward. Bye-bye.